Hey everybody, it's Big Jonas. Happy Monday. It's great to have you all here on June 11th, 2018. We're going to take a look at some crypto, some Bitcoin, try and figure out, what's going on, what the charts are telling us, try and get an understanding of, what news out there may be impacting price, market sentiment. There's a lot going on in the world now, and I think Bitcoin is and crypto in general is going to be playing a larger role in events as we move forward. You can follow me on Twitter at Big Jonas. I give you what I feel are great insight and analysis on cryptocurrency charts, market sentiment. I'm not a professional, but I feel these are my best thoughts and ideas. Let's start, and I wanted to kind of start with the weekly chart here on Bitcoin because you really have to get this whole history around your head when you start thinking about where the price can potentially fall to. And the reason I use the word fall to is because I do feel we are still in this downtrend. And what is this downtrend? It is just a correction, a rebalancing from the parabolic move that we had that culminated at the end of last year. And we all hope for a very vibrant crypto market. We all want, over time, obviously, all these assets to rise. But there's a lot of realities that we have to come to grips with in the charts that can kind of tell us, where we've been, where we are, and of course, where we might be going. So I want to start with the RSI. And this is the weekly chart, mind you. This is a long time period we're looking at all the way back to April of 2013 when the Bitfinex exchange. And basically we're seeing, Bitcoin's price action this whole time here. We saw its kind of first, actually its second, if you really want to argue. The first parabolic move was from pennies to over dollars, but its first kind of real modern day, or after that one I should say, parabolic move was when the price basically went from 150s area all the way to over $1,000 in like a month and a half, like 2 months. I remember this very clearly. This is back at the end of the year in 2013 there. And then what happened after that, after the market topped off, it basically had this very long-term correction that happened that basically lasted all 2014 with a couple bullish moves, along the way. But in the end, when the market basically capitulated and basically lost any chance here to kind of continue this upward move, you had this kind of long drawn out bear phase that lasted, from September of 14 pretty much till September of 15. So we have 1 year of downward price action with some moves during which money was definitely made. It moved from 217, to 300 there, a little over 30% move almost. Couple moves here. These are weekly charts here. So we see we had some uptrend, we had some downtrend, kind of some flat volume there, a nice uptrend. Are we able to break out? Yeah. And then this pretty nasty dump that actually right here around actually exactly at, was that 150, 162-ish, signified the absolute bottom, and the bull market of 2015 had basically started. And that bull market, took the price all the way to where we ended in December. So to get from the bull market beginning to the gold market ending, Bitcoin had to wait about a year for this correction to take place. So where are we now? Well, if the year is kind of what we have here in terms of our history, are we saying, wow, it's going to take a full year to get to almost a bottoming area? Are we going to have to wait all the way till December to potentially find that kind of bullish turnaround and kind of end this downtrend, which will probably at some point become one of a sideways trend, and then eventually we'll basically enter in this new market cycle? Now, what will get us into this new market cycle? What will basically convince, you know, everybody that, hey, there's a better chance that if I'm going to buy and invest and hold, that over the long term, there's a better chance it's going to rise instead of fall, which a lot of people unfortunately have experienced over the past several months. A lot of that's going to be technology and real world uses for crypto, for payment systems, for indexing files and data, actual big companies using actual blockchain technology on a scale that kind of is very explainable, and those conduits won't be just coins and token investments, but there'll be actual companies that will have these newer tokens or tokens that are currently on the market have a better legitimate standing that itself will create that kind of news momentum to bring up a lot of these alts that are potentially still working on plans that are going to revolutionize the world. And if actually some of that starts to come into fruition, those are certain events that will turn this market around, as well as what the chart's going to tell us. So let's take a look here. So what the weekly ended yesterday, we actually bounced legitimately right off the 55 EMA on, the weekly chart there. So that's encouraging. We basically have shown the chart's still still valid, still in play. It's respecting certain chart variables. Now we see on the Bollingers how incredibly wide they got when we had our top off parabolic move. And what we like to see is that they're tightening. This is very good. You see how wide they were here back in January, February, getting tighter. Then kind of quite recently on this move here, it got really tighter. Now, this is all relatively speaking. We can talk about way down here when, that's kind of a more normal tightness, you could argue, for a bullish uptrend, but you still see how very close they are. When every time on the weekly it would pierce the upper Bollinger, it would basically find support in the middle Bollinger. I mean, basically showing a tremendous strength. Even when it broke the middle Bollinger, it able to kind of basically show, wow, this is oversold, and came up. And thusly, when it broke it above, it came back but held support in the middle Bollinger. That's an example of a tremendously bullish market move. One time here, oh, look at that. Actually, when we bottomed was the only time where it pierced the lower Bollinger significantly in a week prior to this one here, which was kind of the fake out bottom that happened. Wow, right in January there. So you have the full year there. So it was just a rough year, basically, from January 15 all the way through, the summertime there, where the market was pretty much flat along those, up and down price dips there. So we're going to come back here. And so the Bollinger is tightening. That's good. This needs to reset significantly more probably if we want to start our uptrend. We might want to keep an eye though on a big dip that if we start seeing the price go below the lower Bollinger, and we're not too far off now. We were getting close here and definitely came back, and look at that, the middle Bollinger acted as very strong resistance there. So we're tightening, but a good indicator to see if we do dip below this lower Bollinger here, which is the white line, that would indicate something like significantly oversold. Now, what's this blue line here? This is the 100 EMA. And the 100 EMA is kind of the next EMA that is on target to potentially be shown to show some sign of support. And we are at $4,800 or so. Now, this is going to kind of continue to slowly rise a couple bucks a day as Bitcoin's price, hopefully over the next couple days, kind of finds some stability. So if we were to dip lower, if there was going to be that next dump, which potentially could happen, these are kind of two indicators where you'd like to see some chart support. One is hair under 6,000, which currently is the lower Bollinger. And then under that is about 4,800, which is the 100 EMA. We do see the stock RSI straightening, beginning to hopefully kind of flatten out to potentially turn bullish. Remember, if the blue crosses the red, that's a very good bullish signal, especially on the weekly. But we see where the RSI is now, and right now it's flat. It's at 43. Okay. When was the last time we were at 43? That was actually 41 was our bottom there, basically right when we had our actual bottoming. So we're getting closer to an area of historic bottoming in Bitcoin. However, prior to that, looks like when we actually had that kind of nasty dip on the parabolic move, was that when that was? Let's take a look. What were the market circumstances when we actually broke lower? So we were at 150. Okay, so that was actually the first. So that was the first dip test to see if we had found a low, and that we actually broke the oversold RSI, which is under 30. And then our actual low, we actually put in a much higher RSI at 40. It's interesting there. That actually shows you that bullish divergence, where the RSI is higher, much higher, by 10, which on the weekly is actually pretty high, while the price basically hit almost the same point. That's a great example of bullish divergence there. So we see a strengthening. Yes, we see a strengthening RSI, while the price here to here was pretty much flat. So that is a bullish indicator there, and of course that basically set us off on our nice move there. So we have history of an RSI touching 30 and dropping, and you see we're at 43. So does this tell me that we can go a lot lower? Sure. There's history repeating. Wouldn't it be great to buy Bitcoin if the RSI is down by 30? Would that not be, from a charting standpoint, a great entry point if we actually do get down there? So keep an eye on this. Let's take weeks to play out. Let's take the whole summer to play out, But these are some areas that you need to keep in mind when you're looking at Bitcoin from a longer term perspective. Let's go to the daily and get kind of a sense where we are here. So you see the daily. We are below currently the lower Bollinger. This is very weak right now because we broke the lower Bollinger pretty severely, and you want to see that kind of pop back up. Like over here, we broke it, boom, pop back up. We actually came up pretty high, didn't hold, but then it did hold. So it took a couple days to iron out to get back inside that Bollinger there. We will get back inside this Bollinger line here, the lower one here, the white one here, at some point. But the question is, will the Bollinger come down to meet the price, or the price go up to meet the Bollinger? Probably a little of both. So there definitely is the potential for a little more upward move here, kind of test the waters. Let's zoom in a little more. Let's go to the 4-hour. Are we trying to put some sort of a bull flag? Sorry. Yeah, like a bull pennant. Yes, why do you keep doing that? Bull. Oh, I see, because I'm hitting the thing. I have no idea. Let's try that again. Yes, okay. I don't know. So yeah, there's something interesting happening here with this pattern. However, the volume is, I wouldn't necessarily call this loading volume here. We had our massive dumps volume. I don't imagine. I mean, granted, everybody who was selling here was buying. For every buyer, there's a seller. For every seller, there's a buyer. So I don't necessarily see this as accumulation. Oops. Hold on, Chads. I have to call you back. In terms of that, more so than just kind of a capitulation move there. So we are putting in some support here. There's just not a lot telling me that this is going to hold and go basically fine. I mean, it can definitely trickle up. I wouldn't be surprised. This is a big dump here when we fell from 68, 72. So that was $400 dump pretty quickly there. So, there isn't much support in that area there. People really are prepared to just get out of it, up until this kind of 68.22 here. So definitely a little bit more room that we could potentially rise up. You see how on the 4-hour, how low we got on the RSI. I mean, 14. That's nuts low. Look at that. That's the lowest we've been in since way back. Way back. Way back. So historically, You're thinking this is crazy low. This is a great entry point. Everything says when we get down this super low in the 4-hour RSI that this is actually a good risk versus reward entry. But I mean, what are you up here? You're up $100 holding. RSI still can't get above 30. It's trying. We've seen where it's done that, kind of taken its time, and then actually made a nice move. Hung out down here, took its time, and then actually made a nice move. So we could definitely be repeating something similar to that. Let's go to the hourly chart here, take a look. You know, nice sideways action. This is like people are like, all right, I'm going to enter here, I'm going to exit here. These are tight trades. You know, RSI is rising on the hourly while the price is stable. It's a positive sign. OBV is leveled off. We're a little toppy on the stock RSI, but we can be up here for a little bit longer, but we're kind of been up here for just on the hourly perspective, pretty long time here, you know, on the stock RSI, even though the RSI is rising. And this rising of the RSI, I mean, even RSIs can put in patterns too. I don't know if this is some kind of a pretty nasty rising wedge forming here. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, if you see this break down, if you see this, where are we going here? There we go. If you see this RSI go, like that and break this line of support here, that's going to really turn around the market, and you could literally see it come way back down. Again, this is the 1 hour. Well, we did find support when the 1 hour literally bottomed out at 12, which is almost like a dead pulse there. So Bitcoin is still showing us that the market is weak. We are under 300 billion on the world market cap right here. Interesting. Cryptocurrency is 1623. We've actually decreased cryptocurrencies. This is fascinating. I think the last time I checked this, we were at 1634. Are we really down 10 tokens? That's good. I mean, that's good in terms of market saturated right now. There's a lot of money spread out with current coins, ICOs, new coins, all sorts of things like that are spreading the market thin. So people are not buying Bitcoin or Litecoin or Ethereum. They want the next hottest thing, the next hottest ICO. And that's where a lot of money is currently going. Bitcoin's dominance at 39.4 is rising slightly, mostly because people are dumping their altcoins. A lot of charts, all charts look the same. Up, down, 7 days, whole week. Dump, dump, dump. A couple dump. I mean, everything. Look at that. Everything's the same. Are there any that are slightly different? Did anything have a good week? I mean, not really. I'm sure there's a couple out there. It's got to be right. Tether had the best week. That's actually the best looking chart right there. So there you go, folks. Tether, put all your money in Tether. No, I'm just kidding. But that clearly shows market sentiment. Market sentiment right now is, hey, I'm looking to go flight to safety. I'm going to a fiat comparison, or I'm going to fiat, period. And just waiting, because right now I'm not seeing any direction. That's what the average person out there who's trying to trade or figure out which coins to hodl next. And you need that. You need those people to be engaged in the market for the health of the market. Game credits. This is one that keeps popping up in terms of having an interesting week. That's actually a weird but semi-bullish chart there. It's another one interesting. But mostly you can obviously see everything has had a pretty rough week. So, this is going to play out. We've talked about how on the weekly chart, we'll talk about equilibrium for a moment. Jesus, there we go. Okay, so, red candle, red candle, red candle, green candle, stability, red candle. So, there will be a wick in this week's candle. I highly doubt we have hit the lowest point for the week. The question is, how much higher can we get here? What kind of bullishness is going to take us back over 7,000, which now, unfortunately, is actually going to act as a pretty strong resistance level, psychologically. And let's see, where is 7,000 there? So, I mean, you have a situation here where, I mean, I remember when we broke 8,000 on the down, and it was like, wow, what's it going to be like to break over 8,000? And we did. We broke over 9,000 too. So it's not like it's an insurmountable feat. But every time we break these kind of new round numbers, Ethereum at 600 to 500, Litecoin at 200, 150 to maybe 100, and now Bitcoin, we're in the sixes. It's a little, we spend so much time in the sevens. We get so used to the sevens, and that makes the eights feel so much farther away. And now we're in the sixes, so that makes the $7,000 area feel so farther away. So, this move that we were watching basically since the end of May, just one big kind of rising wedge, if you will, that just kind of toppled over pretty dramatically. Now, these dips, quite honestly, a lot of times they happen in threes. You have your one kind of level out. Is this the bottom? Nope. Two, big one kind of level is the bottom. And then it's kind of that third dip that happens there that, I think a lot of the market might be waiting for. Look at this candle here. This is the 1 hour candle here. Look at that crazy volume that was in this candle here. I guess it's not that crazy compared to this. But oh yeah, so this back here, April 12th, this was the biggest hourly candle ever from a dollar volume standpoint in Bitcoin. Very impressive. This is also a very big candle, but I don't feel it's for the same reasons, unfortunately. I think this is a dumping candle. I think this is really like a liquidation here because you haven't seen that kind of follow through over the past several hours there. Granted, you're not seeing that selling, but we're just not seeing that buying. And again, it's market sentiment. Like, how comfortable are you right now putting, a big trade into Bitcoin sub 7,000 now? What are your expectations? Because I think if you're getting in now, and we are able to get closer to 7,000, this green line here, a lot of people are going to be taking profits. Quick flips. Knowing that how strong that 7,000 line is. So these are things that you have to consider. That this is a different market now. I think a lot of the the unwinding from our parabolic move we had has kind of come to an end in terms of the energy, the market momentum. A lot of that's been kind of petered out like a ball as it drops, and every time it hits the ground and comes back up, it just goes a little bit lower and a little bit lower, a little bit lower. And finally, it just kind of stops bouncing and flatlines until we have that market shift, that next change, that next cycle that kind of creates, that next run higher. And that will happen. The question is, what point is that bottoming going to be at? And are we talking about much lower, 4,000s up here? There's a lot of talk about sub 3,000, sub 2,000 levels. I mean, it's just so hard to talk about anything close to those areas right now because of so much support is still left to be tested on the down. We bottomed, on Bitfinex right around 6,000, a hair under. I know Coinbase was around 58 and change. So a hair under 6,000 is our next short-term support that may get tested. And then after that, kind of all bets are off. We're basically back into a zone of Bitcoin where a lot of new traders who kind of came to Bitcoin towards the end are not familiar with in terms of, what the market was like back then and what the Bitcoin price action at 4,000, at 3,000. I mean, it's just a completely different paradigm considering about how high we had gone. So these are areas that we can definitely talk about at a later date, but we're not there yet. I think what we need to focus on is basically everything in the next $700. From 6,000 to where we are now, and then if we can break over 7,000, that would definitely be a very positive sign. But it just doesn't seem like that's in the cards now. It feels like we want to test lower because buyers seem to feel like they can get this lower. They can buy Bitcoin at a lower price, and maybe we can see some sense as to kind of what we're going on here in terms of longs and shorts, because that can give us a sense about market sentiment. Now, I remember I actually put this chart on Twitter of this is the Bitcoin longs, and they're in this channel here. And a couple days ago, they were basically top of channel, and this was basically going to be that long breakout where the price would break over 78, 7,900, maybe touch 8,000, and you would start to see long contracts just explode. And once again, it got rejected. Now, this is something you want to keep an eye on. It was a good chance we could test this lower support line, which has held 1, 2, 3, 4. Didn't hold this time, and this is an example of a very oversold move that we had in early May, which actually led to a nice bounce. So if we break this, it's where you see this action under this line can give you some sense of when a bottoming might occur. So, and if you look to see how it actually happened, we had these beautiful looking tweezer bottom right there. Boom, boom. What a great sign there from the Bitcoin longs that said, oh, this is a bottoming. The longs have stopped liquidating, and now they're loading again. And sure enough, the price action followed in suit. Let's keep an eye on this channel here. A break of this, and I want to see where we're reacting down here, similar to what happened with the oversold conditions. That's a good opportunity for a long entry there. This is the longs. Bitcoin shorts, where are you? There you are. Okay, interesting. So I was trying to figure out if we're putting in some sort of a saucier pattern, if you will, here, because clearly we've kind of. I'll start messing with that. We had our mega drop basically on our super green candle back in April, and we've basically been trying to entice the shorts, if you will, to kind of come back in the market, because that seemed to be what brought on the last run, was this kind of overbought shorts all-time high scenario and created a short squeeze. So sure enough, we're kind of going back to something like that. Could be a nice saucer putting in here. Are we going to see a little cup action here when Bitcoin price rises a little bit, and then boom? The higher this goes, the lower Bitcoin's price goes, or at least the lower the market thinks Bitcoin price is going to go. Now, I remember there being something interesting here. Let me just get rid of the Bollingers, hide you for a second. There was a gap. Right here. Why aren't the Bollingers? There we go. There we go. Okay. Markets don't like gaps. Markets like to fill gaps. And what I mean is there's a gap in the price action here. There we go. Here to here. And as you can see, the price stopped here and started here. And this was on that green candle that happened so fast that created this shock where the price just fell out of the sky super quick. And there was actually a skip in the beat. And the reason I want to bring this area up here, contracts between 34 and 37,000, is because the market wants to fill this gap up, and they're kind of bring the price, which is over here. They want to bring the price up to there at some point. At some point, the short contracts will be in this area again to fill this gap. Might be another kind of indicator potentially of a bottoming area in the price of Bitcoin, basically showing the shorts are overextended. Who knows? But the market wants to fill this gap, and I wouldn't be surprised if this uptrend in the short contracts will continue until it does just that. I do want to bring up one more chart. This is the futures chart CME, and I was looking at it about gaps again because we had a gap here where the market closed on, I believe, Friday, opened up uh, late last night, East Coast U.S. time, I believe, or early this morning, and basically had a huge gap down when the price, you can see very clearly, a little box here, closed at 7,600 and opened at 7,100, probably a little lower. You see how quickly that gap down there. So, a couple orders filled starting at pretty much 7,100, but more or less it opened at 6,700 there. So, this is another example of a gap that wants to be filled by the price of Bitcoin, which is a bullish sign in the sense that at some point the price should get back to around 7,600 for the market to kind of feel better about itself. Now, right here, you see another gap. Where are we going here? Yeah, here. So it closed here. It opened much higher, and we had this big gap right here, and then it filled over the week, and the gap was closed, and it felt better. We have another gap right here where the market opened higher, and then the gap closed the following week. We have a bigger example over here. Let me move my box here. Big gap here. Now this big gap gapped up and stayed open for quite a while from the end of April 23rd, it looks like, all the way till May 11th through the 15th there. So almost a full month, this gap stayed open, but it closed. So at some point, I believe this gap will close as well. Now, the problem is it could be a while, or it could be this week. These are things we just don't know about. This gap could end up filling on the way up from a very long retrenchment in the price of Bitcoin, or it could fill very quickly over the next few days if we get a nice bullish pop. So these are things that you have to keep in mind. Right now, the price of Bitcoin is kind of chilling here, 67.50 area. Maybe we can put some support in right here. Keep an eye on the volume. We're still in a danger zone here. People are shorting this heavily. People are longing this a little bit. But right now, the bears have the momentum. The bears have the control. And we're definitely flirting with support areas of the overall chart that, we really don't want to test. Because we're just not sure what's going to happen if we break 65. And, of course, if we get down to 6,000. So keep an eye on these. I'll do the other alts, Litecoin, Ethereum, and a lot of the alts. I'll discuss those on Twitter. Pretty much they're still moving in lockstep with Bitcoin. Whatever Bitcoin does, they're going to follow suit. If Bitcoin does break in the low sixes, Litecoin will go sub 100. And Ethereum will definitely be back in the $400 range. So, thank you for joining me today. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at BigChonas. I'm also on TradingView at BigChonas and put some charts out there as well. I hope you guys have a great afternoon, and just, you don't have to force it. Be safe out there. These good trade opportunities will present themselves. You are smarter than you think. You can play this correctly because you're playing it for the long term, and you're not prepared to get wrecked in one trade. That's the way that you can basically be out of this game pretty fast. So play the crypto game long because it will be around for a long time. Have a great day, people. Talk to you later.